All right. So, Nietzsche, right? You sent us these excerpts.
Yeah.
Thus spoke Zarathustra.
Kind of a tough one.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild ride.
What do you make of it? Is it something you find yourself drawn to, or
Well, I mean, it's definitely not your typical philosophy book, right?
Yeah.
It's poetry, it's myth, almost a performance piece.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I think Nietzsche knew he couldn't just like lay out arguments.
Yeah.
He had to shake people up emotionally to get his point
And
across.
he does that right away. Like first page, Zarathustra, he's been up in the mountains for 10 years.
10 years, yeah,
Yeah.
and then boom, decides it's time to come down and share his wisdom
Yeah.
with humanity. Big question is humanity ready for it?
That is the question, isn't it? And he's got this idea of the Superman,
Yeah.
this being who just like embodies human potential, always striving to overcome themselves. But that right there, I think that makes people uncomfortable, you know? It's like, are we supposed to just abandon humility, compassion, all these things we've been taught?
Yeah, yeah. And it's almost like he's saying those things the way we understand them. That's what's holding us back from really becoming what we could be.
Right.
And then there's that contrast he gives us with the last man, right? We have discovered happiness.
Hmm.
And they just blink.
Yeah.
That's a little creepy.
It is, because I think we've all felt that pull, haven't we? To just settle, to avoid the difficult questions,
Oh,
the striving, the
Yeah, and he's like putting a mirror up to that complacency
Yes.
and then smashing it with a hammer.
Yes, exactly.
But to get to the heart of it, we got to talk about the phrase that everyone, even if they don't know Nietzsche, they know this phrase, God is dead.
Right.
No, obviously not literally, but what's he getting at?
Well, it's the idea of God, right? It's crumbled, and Nietzsche saw it as both terrifying because that whole like moral framework is gone for a lot of people. That sense of purpose, that meaning, but also liberating because now it's on us to create our own meaning, right?
Yeah. That's a lot of responsibility suddenly.
It is. It is.
Yeah, that line about blaspheming the earth just stuck with me. To rate the heart of the unknowable higher than the meaning of the earth. It's like this world right here, right now, that's what matters.
Exactly. And that focus on this world, on the physical, the body even, that's so important for understanding Nietzsche.
Yeah.
He just rejects this idea that we're just souls trapped in flesh.
Yeah.
He celebrates the body.
Yeah, he says, sense and spirit would fain persuade thee that they are the end of all things, so vain are they.
Right.
So our senses, our intellect, they're
tools.
tools. They're not the be-all, end-all.
Tools for what, though? That's the question.
Yeah.
And that's where the will to power comes in. I know you've probably heard this, listener.
Oh, yeah.
Thrown around, misunderstood, maybe. Some kind of lust for domination. But it's so much more nuanced than that.
Yeah, it's so many more than that.
It's the drive in all living things to grow, to overcome, to express their full potential. Think of, a plant pushing up through concrete to reach the sunlight.
Yeah.
That's will to power. It's about self-realization. It's not just about, crushing others.
Okay, but how does this play out in the text? Is Zarathustra just going around flexing? I mean, he's been alone for 10 years.
Right. This descent is his act of will to power. He's driven by this need to share what he's discovered, to challenge humanity.
Yeah.
That takes incredible strength, inner strength.
So will to power can be about creation. It can be about pushing boundaries, not just brute force.
Exactly.
Okay, so then that brings us to maybe the other really big idea here that people kind of trip out on. Eternal recurrence. This idea that every moment, every joy, every heartbreak will repeat infinitely. I don't know how I feel about that.
It should make you think.
Yeah.
Because Nietzsche's saying, look, if you knew you were going to relive this exact life over and over and over again, would you change anything? That's the power of this idea. It forces us to really think about, are we living a life that we can embrace eternally?
Yeah. That's heavy. It's like a cosmic gut check.
It is.
If the idea of your life on infinite loop just fills you with dread, then maybe it's time to make some changes.
Yeah, maybe.
And he does give us some guidance, right?
Yeah.
This idea of the path of the creator.
He does. It involves solitude. It involves self-overcoming, creating new values. Remember that line, thou lonesome one, thou goest the way of the creating one. A God wilt thou create for thyself out of thy seven devils. So what are your seven devils, listener? What are you wrestling with? Could facing those inner demons be the key to unlocking your own creative power?
Yeah, wow. It's not just about wishing things were different. It's about the work, the inner work
Hmm.
to actually change. And
Yeah.
that work involves confronting our beliefs,
Right.
especially the ones that are just handed down to us, right?
Absolutely. And Nietzsche is such a fierce critic of traditional morality,
Hmm.
especially Christian morality.
Yeah.
He saw it as life denying based on this false good versus evil.
Right.
He wants us to break free from that.
So instead of just following the rules,
Yeah.
he's urging us
On everything.
to think critically about why we believe what we believe.
Exactly.
Are those beliefs serving us?
Yeah.
Are they helping us grow, or are they holding us back, making us fearful and resentful?
Yeah.
And he's got some strong opinions on compassion and pity. That line, not your sympathy, but your bravery hath hitherto saved the victims.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It's provocative, to say the least.
It is. It is. But think about it, listener. Have you ever seen someone who's coddled so much to the point where they never develop their own strength?
Right.
Nietzsche's not saying we shouldn't care,
Mm.
but that true strength comes from within.
So it's about empowering others,
Yeah.
not just feeling sorry for them,
Right.
but there's a danger there, isn't there?
Mhm.
If everyone's striving for self-realization, I mean, do we all just become a bunch of Nietzschean narcissists?
It's a great question. And it leads us right into who Zarathustra warns us about. The rabble and the false hire men.
Yeah.
The rabble, they're the ones who just like cling to mediocrity, you know? They
Yeah.
fear anyone who stands out, who tries to pull everyone down to their level.
Yeah.
That image of the poison fountains, that's the rabble.
Oh, yeah, that's powerful.
They can pollute even the most beautiful things with their negativity.
Hmm.
And the false hire men, I mean,
Not the people you want to invite to a dinner party.
no,
Oh.
no, definitely not. I mean, they talk a big game. They might even have some power, but it's all surface, right?
Yeah.
It's all show. They crave influence, but without that inner work,
Right.
the self-overcoming,
Yeah, yeah.
they're the ultimate posers, right?
So how do we spot them? And more importantly, how do we make sure we're not becoming one of them?
Well, Nietzsche gives us some clues. The genuine higher men, the ones who are truly on the path, I mean, they value honesty above all else.
Right.
And honesty with themselves, even about their flaws. They have courage. They face their fears. They don't shy away from discomfort.
Right.
And they're creative, right? They're not content with the status quo. They're always pushing boundaries, making new values.
It sounds exhausting, though.
Yeah.
This constant striving, this self-overcoming. I mean, is there ever a point where you can just relax and just be the Superman?
Well, that's just it. It's not a destination, it's a journey, right? There's no finish line where you just suddenly sprout a cape
Yeah.
and you're invulnerable.
Right.
It's about that constant pushing, that expanding of what you thought was possible for yourself. And it's a process.
And that process involves confronting those shadow parts of ourselves.
Absolutely.
The stuff we'd rather not look at.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that line about creating a god out of your seven devils, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, powerful stuff. Don't run from those dark parts of yourself. Integrate them, understand them, use that energy to fuel your growth.
It's almost like those flaws, those weaknesses, they're not things to be ashamed of.
Mhm.
They're potential energy waiting to be tapped.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of self-awareness, though, right?
It does. It does.
And maybe some time alone to really dig into that stuff.
Oh, Nietzsche definitely believed in solitude to reflect, to confront those inner demons.
Yeah.
I mean, you need space away from the noise of the world, you know,
Right.
from the demands of others.
Yeah. Yeah.
He also talked about discipline, you know, training the mind and body to be strong and resilient.
So it's not just thinking deep thoughts. It's about taking action, putting in the work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is where I get a little tripped up. Nietzsche talks about love, but not in the traditional sense.
Right.
He talks about love for ourselves.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know. That sounds a little selfish to me.
It's not selfish in the way that we typically think about it, though, right? It's not about ego. It's not about vanity.
Okay.
It's about recognizing our own worth, our own potential, and treating ourselves with the same kindness and compassion
Right.
that we would offer to someone we we truly loved.
So it's more like having a healthy sense of self-respect, knowing your own value and not letting yourself be diminished by self-doubt or by the negativity of other people.
Exactly, exactly. And from that place of self-love, we can access our full power. We're less likely to be held back by fear. We're more likely to take risks, to go after what we want, to create something meaningful.
Yeah, that creative aspect just keeps coming up, right?
It does.
It's like he's urging us to not just accept the world as it is, but to shape it.
He is. Revaluing all values. I mean, that sounds pretty radical, I know.
Yeah, it does.
But think about it, listener. Have you ever felt like the rules you're supposed to live by, they don't quite fit?
Oh, yeah.
Like there's a different way, a more authentic way, but you're afraid to break the mold.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin if we're talking about revaluing all values?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it feels kind of overwhelming.
It does.
Well, start with yourself, right? Look inward. What do you truly believe? What are your deepest aspirations? Nietzsche encouraged us to read widely, to have conversations that challenge us, to expose ourselves to different perspectives and expand your horizons. And from that wider view, you can start to discern what truly resonates with your soul.
So it's about letting go of those beliefs that aren't serving us anymore, that are holding us back.
Yeah, it's like shedding a skin that's become too tight.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not a one-time thing.
Right.
It's a lifelong process.
Exactly.
Learning, growing, unlearning, and reevaluating. Becoming a Superman. It's not about reaching some fixed endpoint.
Right.
It's about that striving, that reaching for something just beyond our grasp.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it makes the journey the goal, right? But he's not just some abstract philosopher.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about these abstract concepts.
All right.
He gets into like the nitty-gritty of human interaction, right? Like that scene with Zarathustra and the kings.
Oh, yeah, those kings.
Oh, that one really struck me.
Hiding from their responsibilities.
What did you find so compelling about that?
Well, it's about leadership on the surface, right? About power.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks to something much, much deeper. It's about that temptation we all feel sometimes to just abdicate responsibility, to say, it's too hard,
Right.
I'm not cut out for this.
I can't do it.
Yeah, and Zarathustra just calls him out, right?
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't offer pity.
No.
He doesn't offer consolation.
Whoever cannot command himself shall obey.
There you go. That's a harsh truth.
It is.
And I think it applies to all of us, listener, right?
Yeah.
If we can't master ourselves, our fears, our weaknesses,
right,
we're always going to be at the mercy of external forces,
yeah.
of other people's agendas.
It's like you can't lead from a place of weakness, from a place of insecurity.
You can't.
And it's not just about leading other people.
Right.
It's about leading ourselves.
It is.
If we can't even command our own thoughts,
right.
our own emotions, how can we expect to create anything meaningful out there in the world?
Exactly. And that's where Nietzsche's emphasis on self-mastery comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's not about dominating others. It's about mastering ourselves so that we can be, a force for good.
Right.
So we can use our power for something greater than ourselves.
That brings up another point that I found challenging. This distinction between good and strong. It's not enough to just have good intentions. You actually have to have the strength, the courage, the competence to actually act on them.
He's definitely not a fan of weak-willed do-gooders.
Yeah.
It's like the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
If you want to make a real difference, you got to put in the work.
Yeah.
You got to develop your skills. You got to face your fears, and you got to act decisively even when it's difficult.
And be okay with making mistakes along the way.
Of course.
Because no one's perfect.
Right.
Even Supermen stumble sometimes.
Yeah. They do. But it's about learning from those mistakes. It's about picking yourself up and continuing on the path.
Yeah.
It's about that relentless striving, that commitment to becoming the best version of yourself, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
Even when you doubt yourself.
So what's the ultimate takeaway from this encounter with the kings? What's Nietzsche trying to teach us about leadership, about power, about ourselves even?
Well, I think I think he's saying that true leadership, right?
Yeah.
Both of ourselves and of others. I mean, it requires more than just a desire for power
Right.
or a sense of duty.
Hmm.
It requires a deep understanding of ourselves, a willingness to confront our shadows, a clear vision for the future and the courage to act on that vision,
Yeah.
even when you face resistance.
And to know when to step aside, right?
Yes.
When our clinging to power is actually holding us back,
Absolutely.
holding others back
It is.
from reaching their potential.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that true power lies in service, in using our abilities to create something better
Right.
for ourselves and for the world around us.
Okay. So we've talked about the rabble,
Mm-hmm.
the false higher men, the kings. Who are the people that Zarathustra does want us to surround ourselves with?
Well, he definitely values those who can challenge us, who
Mhm.
can push us to think differently, who aren't afraid to disagree with us.
Mm.
He talks about the need for intellectual sparring partners,
Right.
for people who can help us, sharpen our minds, refine our ideas.
So not surrounding ourselves with yes men,
No,
but
no.
people who just echo our thoughts back to us.
Right, right.
It's finding people who can help us see our blind spots,
Mm-hmm.
challenge our assumptions, help us grow.
Exactly. And he also values those who are joyful, who celebrate life, who can laugh in the face of adversity, because this path of self-overcoming, this striving to become a Superman, it's not always going to be easy, right? There will be challenges, there will be setbacks,
Yes.
there will be moments of doubt and despair.
So we need people who can lift us up,
Mm-hmm.
who can remind us of the beauty and joy of being alive,
Yeah.
who can help us, find the humor in the midst of the struggle.
Absolutely. Because ultimately Nietzsche's philosophy is not about, grim self-denial or a joyless pursuit of power. It's
Yeah.
about embracing the fullness of life,
Mhm.
with all its joys and sorrows, its triumphs and failures.
Yeah.
It's about living with passion, with purpose, with a sense of playful exploration.
It strikes me, even though Nietzsche is often portrayed as this solitary kind of brooding figure,
Right.
he really does place a lot of emphasis on the importance of community,
He does.
of finding our tribe, connecting with others who share our values.
He does, because as much as he valued solitude and introspection, he also recognized that we're social creatures, right?
Right?
And we need connection.
Yeah.
We need support.
We can't do it all alone.
We can't do it alone.
And I think that's an important reminder for all of us, listener.
Yeah.
No matter how independent we are, no matter how much we value our individuality, we all need a community.
We do.
We all need a tribe,
Mm.
a group of people who understand us, who support us,
Yeah.
and challenge us to be our best selves.
Exactly. And that community doesn't have to be limited to people who agree with us on everything.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, it's probably better if it's not, because it's through those differences, through those challenging conversations, that we can really grow and evolve.
It's about finding that balance
Mm-hmm.
between honoring our individuality and recognizing our interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Our need for others.
That's a great insight. And it brings us to another crucial aspect of Nietzsche's philosophy,
Okay.
his views on love and relationships.
All right, let's go there.
Now this is where things can get a little tricky.
Yeah, a little tricky house.
Because when we think about love, right, especially in the context of traditional morality,
Right.
it's all about selflessness, compassion, putting others first.
Yeah, yeah.
But Nietzsche, he kind of turns that on its head.
So it's not that he's against love or
Right.
kindness. It's more about like where those impulses coming from.
Yeah. He critiques what he calls slave morality, this idea that we should be meek and humble, self-sacrificing. He sees it as a way for the weak to control the strong, to make strength feel guilty.
So are they coming from a place of genuine strength
Mm-hmm.
and self-love, or are they coming from a place of fear, a need to be liked, a need to be seen as good?
Exactly. Remember, we talked about the will to power. For Nietzsche, even love should be an expression of that will, of our desire to grow, to create, to expand. It shouldn't diminish us. It should empower us.
Okay, so what does a Nietzschean love relationship look like? Because that's That's not exactly in the self-help aisle at the bookstore.
No, no, it's definitely not about codependency or clinging to each other for validation.
Right.
Nietzsche believed that strong individuals, those striving to become supermen and superwomen, I mean, they need relationships that challenge them,
Right.
that push them to be their best selves.
So less about finding someone to complete you
Right.
and more about finding someone who inspires you to become more fully yourself.
That's a great way to put it. And it requires both partners to be on their own paths of self-discovery, to be committed to their own growth. Think of it like two dancers, each with their own unique style, moving together in a way that enhances both of their performances.
Yeah, that's a nice image. But it also sounds incredibly rare.
It is.
I mean, how many people are truly committed to that level of self-awareness and growth?
It's not easy.
And how do you even find those people?
Well, it requires us to be discerning, to be willing to walk away from relationships that are holding us back.
Right.
Even if that's painful.
Yeah.
And it requires us to be the kind of person we want to attract, right?
Mm.
To be working on ourselves, to be living our values, to be actively engaged in the world.
So it's a two-way street.
It is.
You can't just kind of sit back and wait for your Nietzschean soulmate to show up.
Right.
You got to be doing the work yourself, becoming the best version of yourself, and trusting that the right people will come into your life at the right time.
Exactly. And that's true of all relationships, not just romantic ones, right?
Hmm?
The friends we choose, the mentors we seek out, even the casual interactions we have, they can all contribute to our growth.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Or they can hold us back.
Right.
It's about being mindful, about choosing wisely.
So we covered a lot of ground here.
We did.
Superman, will to power, death of God, the reevaluation of values,
Mm-hmm.
importance of self-love, dangers of the rabble and the false hiremen,
Yeah.
the need for community. We even got a glimpse into Nietzschean love.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Where does this all leave us, listener? What are you supposed to do with all these ideas?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And I think Nietzsche would be the first to say there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
His philosophy is it's a provocation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge. It's a call to action.
Yeah.
It's about taking these ideas and wrestling with them.
Yeah.
Seeing how they resonate with your own experience and figuring out what they mean for your own unique journey.
So not about becoming a Nietzschean disciple.
Right.
It's about using his ideas as a springboard
For our own self-discovery.
Exactly.
And growth.
Yeah.
It's about asking ourselves tough questions, challenging our assumptions,
Yeah.
and being willing to step outside of our comfort zones.
And it's about embracing the joy and the beauty of being alive, you know?
Yeah.
Even amidst the struggle.
Right.
Remember Zarathustra dancing? He's not some grim ascetic figure. He's full of life. He's full of passion, full of a love for this world and all its messy,
Right.
contradictory glory.
That's a great reminder because it's easy to get lost in the intellectual side of Nietzsche, to get bogged down in the complexity of his arguments.
Mm-hmm.
But at the heart of it, his philosophy is about living fully, authentically, and joyfully.
It is, and that's a message I think we can all take to heart,
Yeah.
regardless of whether we agree with everything Nietzsche said or not.
Well, this deep dive into Thus Spoke Zarathustra has been quite an adventure, I got to say.
It has.
It's challenged my thinking. It's expanded my horizons. And I got to say, I feel both inspired and maybe a little bit overwhelmed.
Well, that's the beauty of Nietzsche, right? He shakes us up. He makes us question everything, and in doing so, he helps us become more fully ourselves.
And on that note, listener, we'll leave you to continue your own Nietzschean journey.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to question, to challenge, to create, and most importantly, to dance.
Until next time, deep divers, keep exploring.